Welcome to Yoga with Gabriel. Thank you for coming. Get situated, and then we'll try for a 5-minute silent sit. I'll time it. So just find a nice, comfortable shape. It can be with the legs out, the legs wide, the legs folded. 5 minutes. Don't just do something, sit there. All right. Guessing everybody's nice and situated by now. And here we go. Just 5 minutes of pure sitting.
Right now, like right this minute now.
All right, everybody. That was 5 minutes, pretty much exactly. There are so many great meditation techniques, and one among them is just kind of that technique-free version of sitting. Both times we've done it, we have put a very specific time limit on it, so you know going into it, it's only going to be that long. But I think there's something very satisfying, gratifying, calming, stabilizing about that very simple version of the practice. Anyway, so let's get moving a little bit. So the plan is, let me show this real quick before you go into it. We're going to start by lying on our side, just watch. And I'm going to let this arm sweep like a clock. And then back to where I started. So I'm rotating not the low back and the knees and the hips, but everything else. Neck, as much rotation there as you can find. Upper back, thoracic, mid back. Yeah? So let's try about 10 or 12 of those. So come on to one side. I'm on my right side, so I'll cue it that way. Got the knees stacked. They can be up around the hips or down a little lower. I kind of like down a little lower. And you're going to let your nose, your gaze, pretty much follow the sweeping arm. And just come back and forth. No hurry. It is a little bit of a shoulder stretch, but you really want to feel the full rotation in your neck and your back. Oh my God, that felt so good. Not just an arm stretch. So you're really working on the rotation. Further, I'm trying to keep my hand that's sweeping, like literally on the grass the whole time. About 6 more. Oh my gosh, that feels so good. Oh. All right. I know some of us might be in kind of tight confines. Obviously, I've got a fair amount of space right here, so really taking advantage of this full sweeping capacity. Last one. Oh my gosh. Whew. We're going to change sides. So, I'm working from the left side at this point. You obviously just switch sides. Stacking the knees. They're not up too high. Low back hardly moves. Shoulder, upper back, neck, tons of rotation. Oh, oh my God. Now the rotation for me at this point is going from basically 3 o'clock, there's 12, there's 9, and I'm almost down to 6 by the end of the move. I'm not in a hurry, but I'm not going that slowly either. And roughly speaking, my head is rotating as far as the arm, maybe even a little further. Last couple rotations. Last one. Muy bueno. Let's go back to side one. All right. We are going to do a quick and dirty version of the six-way hips. Okay? So, 3 options here for your head. Down low on a straight arm. It's a little lower than your spine. Up on a bent arm, pretty close to level with your spine. Or up on a propped hand, a little higher than the spine. Really, all 3 work. Just find a comfortable shape. 6-way hips. If you've done this with me before, this is about half the time. But still kind of the same grueling ordeal. All right, it's not that bad. All right, so find a comfortable shape for your head. I'm going to just vacillate between the 3. Start with a straight leg on top. Just level with your hip. And just lift and low. So while you're lifting and lowering, you want a downward kind of projection to your tail. Squeezed in through your ribs. Kind of tight through your trunk. Okay? And very little rest here. Just a quick little let it go. Massage if need be, or if you'd like. And then back to lift it. Number 2. Forward and neutral. So remember, neutral is a working position. So even when she just sits here, the legs lifted as high as your hip. Now these forward movements, again, the leg stays about hip height. Any amount I can comfortably find, even moving into not so comfortable. All right, just not injurious, of course. These are really safe but juicy. One thing I really like about them. All right, let's release. Number 3, backward. Generally speaking, when your trunk is very strong and stable and you've knit your ribs, there will not be a lot of backward movement. 2, 3, 4, 5 inches. But it's a robust, strong 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 inches. Last few. Oh my gosh, it sure is. And release. Yikes. Next, small circles. It burns. And circles the other way. Ay, ay, ay. I might have to tap. Okay, and then release. Last one. Really just a repeat of 2 and 3. Forward and backward, but just one continuous move. So forward, backward, forward, backward. Last couple. Oh. Eesh. Oh. Bonus stretch at the end here. Little quad opening. Keep the flex on the ribs. That's no back bend. Even a little forward bend if need be. Really squeeze the butt. Ay, ay, ay. Tuck under your tail. And release. All right. 6 workers and then 1 stretch. New side. Same set of options for your head, everybody. A little lower, pretty much right on, a little higher. They all work. Phase 1. Moving through these pretty quickly. Relatively neutral leg, just going up and down. Po-po on their way. Okay. Eesh. Release. Numero dos. Forward. Neutral. Forward. Neutral. So on these forward movements, generally we get a fair amount of range. You might be going all the way out to 3 o'clock. But focus more on the control, sort of the stabilizing, the strength. I mean, obviously you're going for range of motion too, so it's all of it. But rather than getting too floppy, going too far forward, exchange that for a more stable trunk, even if you get a little less range. Uno más. Let's release. Backward. So I'm just trying to like basically go directly back toward the water. It's full glute squeeze just on the whole time, especially at the backward most movement. If you had a wall that you were really close to, you could even try to like situate so you push your heel into the wall. Certainly not necessary at this point, but future reference. And release. Oh, goodness. Circles two ways, but start with one way only. No need for extra confusion. Oh, it burns again. Circles the other way. And then the last move, two familiar movements, movement 2 and 3, just together as one. So forward, backward, toe kick, heel kick, toe, heel. Last couple. Oh man. Bonus stretch here to end the sequence. Open up that quad. Tuck through the tail. Squeeze in through your ribs. And then release. Oh, goodness. Belly down, everybody. We're going to come belly down. So we did the sequence very recently, but I know everybody comes on at a different point. Not everybody's rocking 4 days a week. 4 days a week on Zoom, y'all. So these are the prone eyes, which is what a lot of PTs call them. I often use that same reference point, the arms down along your side, like a rocket ship, just like a lowercase I. So one quick bit of clarification, take a look. Chin's gonna tuck, shoulders are gonna tuck. I'm gonna squeeze the shoulder blades together. My thumbs are closer to the ground at this point, so I'm just gonna barely lift those thumbs off the ground. And then release. Okay, so let's try 12 of those. 12 prone eyes. Let's go. Keep the butt squeeze on. Chin tuck. Get those shoulders away from the ears. Just barely lift. You can lift more than barely, but a lot of us just don't have much more. And release. This is another one of those movement patterns that's very efficient, great at just sort of unwinding from the rounded shoulder scene we're in a lot of the time. Nice on the spine, good for the glutes when they're on too. There's enough to chew on for a really strong, robust mover, and it's simple enough for really almost anybody to try to engage. So last couple. Bonus on this last one, hold it for about 6 breaths. And then finally, everybody release. Oh, so nice. All right, let's take the feet at least as wide as the mat. Take the hands onto the tail. Turn the head to one side. Palms face the sky. Lift your head. Maybe your breastbone comes up, but maybe not. Look to your mat. And then turn your head the other way. And then float along with your breathing, everybody. Lift during inhalation and lower during exhalation. Lift on inhale, lower on exhale. Lift on inhale, lower on exhale. 2 more. Okay, next, take a brief break in Sphinx. So you got forearms on the ground, breastbone lifted, still a little squeeze in the butt. While you're up here, just try 10 really strong active squeezes and a brief little release. So strong lockdown on the glutes and let it go. Strong lockdown on the glutes, let it go. Any foot situation that helps you recruit. I just went from untucked to tucked. They both work. I'm kind of liking the tucked right now. 4 more squeezes. Down to just 1 more. All right. So while you're still in this pose, take a look at what we're going to do next. We're going to do the lift of the chest and the head, and then we're going to do a reaching, sweeping arm like so, like a little salute, and then a reaching, sweeping arm like so, and then down. So to be clear, you've got hands at 6 o'clock, elbows are bent. At the end of the move, you got a hand at 12 o'clock, elbows bent. And you're just going side to side. Does that make sense? Okay, so head turns to one side. Inhale, lift chest, lift head, and sweep an arm. Then on the exhale, or you can even just stay disconnected from breathing, so we focus on the movement for a second. Sweep the arm back to 6, turn the head the other way. So then you lift chest and head, sweep the new arm, turn the head. And just go back and forth. You can connect or disconnect from the breath. Really focus mainly on the movement. The lift, Cover half the claw and turn. And lift. Cover half the claw and turn. Lift, sweep, turn, lift, sweep, turn. One more per side. Lift, sweep, turn. Whoa. Man. Let's come back to Sphinx. All right. Let's tuck toes. Only 6 times. Glute lock down, relax. Glute lock down, relax. Strong active squeeze, and then release. Strong active squeeze, and release. 2 more. 1 more. And release. So take a look. We're going to try the following. Just lifting one leg an inch or 2 off the ground. Yeah? So you can let your head release down. Lift one leg, and that's it. Release. Lift the other leg. Release. Try about 4 or 5 times. Okay. Let's put it all together, then we're going to switch gears. Take a look if you haven't done this one in a while. Some of you have probably never done it. The hands start on the tail. Better off because my face comes down. You lift, you reach an arm, you lift the opposite leg, tag the head, tag the tail, and you're done. Lift the chest, head, arm in the opposite leg, tag the head, tag the tail, and release. Does that make sense? Let's launch onto like 3 or 4 of those guys. So you're working cross-laterally. Oh, man. Getting the bent arm at the top of the pose. Getting the bent arm at the bottom of the pose. Lifting chest, head, arm, and the opposite leg. Ooh, 1 more. Let's shift up. I really just love that sequence. It feels so good. We haven't hit it in quite a while either. So, yeah, lovely. Some of those moves are inspired, well, some come from just my own creation, some come from some stuff PTs are up to, and some inspiration from Gary Kraftsow, one of my old Viniyoga teachers, actually the primary Viniyoga teacher in the country. So anyway, let's try the following. A lunge stretch. So, have 1 foot forward. You guys know the lunge shape. 1 knee under hip. And what you're going to do, and we hit this from so many different angles, coming up, coming down, pulsing, lengthening it, coming into a twist. We're just going to come forward. So really just any amount the hips want to push forward. Now I have the added benefit of being on grass and a kind of soft mat, so my knee in the back feels fine. But for you, depending on where you are, always just pat it to sufficient amount. And if you had to, you could modify this pose. You could lie on your back and just do one leg apanasana, hug the knee toward the chest. Oh. One more big breath here. Oh, my hips are right at the edge of where they can go. Goodness, that's actually a super deep stretch. Got to come out of that, dude, slowly. All right, new side. New foot forward. Just looks like a pretty conventional lunge until it's fully sunk. Oh. Could be on fingertips, fists, depending on your flexibility, forearms. I don't quite get there. Releasing through the back of the head a little too. Really pushing those hips down. Almost just letting them hang down. I mean, there's some muscular work, but there's also just a little bit of release into it. Okay. Release that. All right, everybody. We're going to transition, as promised, up to standing. All right. So once you're up, let's establish a nice hip-width distance stance, maybe even a little wider. I've got one that's a little wider at the moment. Let's sit down into the hips a little bit. Push the knees slightly open. Angle the toes, whatever way helps to conform with your knees going out. Find that kind of Shaolin monk shape where you've got your shoulders down away from your ears, elbows tucked in, the hands supinated like you can hold, a tray across them, and just be here for about 10 big breaths. Now, oh man, it feels so good. Every once in a while, it doesn't happen very often for me, but it kind of feels like it's developing right now. It feels like you could be in this pose for 10 minutes. Sometimes when you arrive here, it feels like you could barely work it for 10 breaths. There's this balanced place where it's absolutely positively work, but only the minimal amount of effort. You've got keen balance, strong hips, well-planted feet, open torso, little action in your upper back, slight retraction in your head. We're down for one more minute. Let's do it. Horse stance. Just an absolute classic. A lot of yogis don't practice it. I get this sort of yoga influence coming from one of my teachers named Anna Forrest. Thanks, Anna. But it's done widely in martial arts. Last few breaths here. Sweet. I really think I got another 6 minutes in me, everybody. All right, but let's, instead of just holding horse stance for this whole session, shift gears a little bit. We're gonna come on out of there. All right. So here's what we're gonna go for. We're gonna line up. I mean, you can really face either way. I just thought it would be more instructive at a profile. And we're going to turn the foot out a little bit that you stand on. Kind of sit down into the hip a tiny bit like the horse stance, but not so low. But we're going to lift one leg off the ground. That changes things substantially. Whew. So we're sitting into like a little version of the horse. Better to bias slightly forward like we did in the horse rather than backward. We don't want that one. And we're just going to let the leg come forward. If you don't like to hold the supinated hands, you can hold down here. And then let's release. Okay? Let's switch legs. We'll have a little time to acclimate to this too. So side 2. Strong hips, just kind of sitting into them with a lifted leg. Slightly biased forward at the torso, a little bit tucked in at the chin. And release. Back to leg 1. If you feel like you got the strength and flexibility, because they really can only come in concert here, you can lift higher. And release. Back to leg 2. Okay, and release. All right, let's try this one. We're going to lift up leg 1 with a bent knee, and then we're just going to let the hip go out. And then leave the leg there. Back to center. Release. Leg number 2. Lift out in front. No help from the arms. And release. Let's go back to leg 1. Lift. This time, sorry, externally rotate. Did I forget that on side 2? My bad. Externally rotate. Come back. Let's make sure we covered it. Lift, externally rotate. Remind myself I got to fix that in post. Okay, and then back to center. One time, catch a foot, and let that leg go slightly backward. Backward. Oh. Okay. Release. New side. Catch your foot. Slightly backward. All right. Now the big full sequence put together as one is forward, outward, back to forward, backward. So there's really just 3 moves: forward, sideward, backward. But rather than trying to go back from the side, we come back to the center. So watch one time. Forward, sideward, back to the center, and then backward. Right? It's basically Warrior 3. Forward, a version of Padagustasana. Sideward, revolve Padagustasana, and backward. Virabhadrasana 3. Yeah? Okay, so please try. Try to link them all together. Forward, sideward, backward. Do like 3 in a row, maybe without ever touching the ground. Forward, sideward, backward. Last one. Back. New side. So you're going for 3 or 4 sequences in a row. I mean, it's one sequence. 3 or 4 reps in a row. Each rep has all 3 moves. Out in front. As high as you can lift. Steady torso. Out to the side. Chest doesn't really turn. It's just a hip movement. Back to the center, so when you go backward, you're already well aligned. You're centered, you just have to go back instead of forward. Forward, sideward, back. 2 more. Forward, sideward, back. Last one. Forward, sideward, back. All right. Nice, everybody. Sweet work. Okay. Let's come back to the center. So, from here we're going to come down into a squat as low as you can take it. Malasana. So you can accommodate with your feet if need be. 2 different accommodations are turn the feet out a little bit more if need be. But maybe as a progression, work toward slightly straighter feet. Lift up the heels on a little pad or double or triple your mat. But as a progression, try to get more and more comfortable with deeper squats with the heels down. But as always, these poses need to work for you for maximum effectiveness and even just keeping them safe. So modify as need be. A few more breaths here. Today's not our day for the 10-minute full low squat, but I know I bring it up a lot. Someday we really will sit in this thing for 10 minutes, but not today. All right. So sorry if I'm going into a little bit of silhouette, y'all. The sun is dipping down behind the trees in the background, but hopefully the audio is still clear and you can see enough to move on. So let's have a seat. Oh, man. All right. So what we're going to do with our seat, we actually did a variation on this just a couple weeks back, but again, not everybody's there for all of those. We're going to roll off toward one side where the straight leg remains. Kind of pull back into almost like that thigh stretch we did at the end of our 7-way hips. But then we're going to let that foot rest on the ground. And then we're going to start to open back. Oh my God. Open backward. So usually, this is a pretty, well, I don't want to give too many modifiers here. For most people, it's a nice strong stretch, like enough to really deliver, but not too much. If it is too much, you can come up to here and just be leaning into this bent leg, thigh, quad. It's kind of like that 7th pose from the hip sequence. It's kind of like part of our standing progression where we drew the thigh backward, Virasana. The way to add a little more intensity, squeeze the butt, reach the arm, lean back more. Oh. Now to come out of the pose, you want to really lean toward the straight leg. Almost all my weight's over here on this straight leg. Then I free that bent leg. You could hardly even see it back there. And then we'll switch sides. Maybe it's easier to see here, I'm not sure. Right, so I'm pulling back. Ooh, this side feels so much tighter. Feeling that stretch through the thigh already. But I've got available, if I need a little more stretch, let this thing release down more. Torso down more. Maybe add the arm. Maybe rotate a little. Oh! Juicy. Really sweet. This too happens, I mean, this is just a great move, I think, for nearly everybody. But if you sit a fair amount, in like chair style sitting, this area right here, which is kind of the center of the stretch, in a seated pose is kind of the center of the crease. So this area tends to be in a 90 degree, I guess 180 degree crease a lot of the day. And so here we're just going for like kind of maximum open. Instead of that 90 degree angle, it's open at 180, maybe even a little beyond 180. A little shy of 180 if it's still kind of tight. This is more like 140. But wherever you can comfortably go, it's golden. Now during the transition out, same style as side one, really roll toward your straight leg, have very little pressure over here on the stretch leg, and free it. All right. We're going to come up to a very simple seat. Upavista Konasana, which is the wide leg kind of straddle. All right. One more bit of inspiration from Gary Kraftsow here. So, and then we're going to come into a resting pose. So what we're going to do is bend one leg. For me, that's a whole different ball game in terms of the stretch capacity on the straight leg versus the bent leg. And then we're going to hinge forward, any amount. About 6 breaths here. You might find some limitation on movement, and the origins of said limitations are unknown. It's just not clear. You might come into this movement and clearly feel your back or your shoulders. You might come into this movement and clearly feel some stretch in the long straight leg. You might come into this stretch and clearly feel some stretch in the hip capsule of the bent leg. I'm in the latter camp. Everybody's in a slightly different camp. For me, the edge range really comes all in here. But it's a great stretch wherever the edge is. Last couple breaths. So good. Please come up. Oh my gosh, swap legs. So as you come into the bent leg scene on the new side, I mean really just wherever that leg winds up is fine, but to be a bit more specific about it, that bent leg, she's basically on the same path that the straight leg was on. Yeah? Now if it's very challenging to bend forward, you can always post up backward. Sit upright if it's already at your edge. Or, which was the only invitation on round one, side one, hinge forward till you hit your edge. 6 breaths. Oh. This pose really feels good. Okay. Now, oh, goodness, let's transition up from there. Let's come back into a comfortable seat. For only 2 minutes, we'll sit quiet like we did in the beginning, and then we'll transition into about a 5-minute shavasana. All right, so find a comfortable seat.
I always give him, like, I try to buy chicken, I'll cut a piece of white out. Just cut a little bit in there. Kind of to trick him, like you said, you know? But he doesn't, I don't have to do it in the morning. In the morning, he'll just eat kibble.
Well, that came quickly.
Yeah, in the morning, it's funny.
2 minutes. So now, shavasana. We'll clock maybe 4 to 5 minutes here. So as always, everybody, find your way into the most comfortable version you can. And see if you can really just let go. Shirasya Hadena Visham Malam Shirasya Savadyakena Yopa Karotam Pravunam Muninam Patanjalim Pranjalir Anatosmi Abahu Parushakaram Shanka Chikrasidarinam Sahasara Shirisham Svetam Pranamami Patanjalim Hare Om Hare Everybody, take your time shifting back into a comfortable seat. All right, well, 2,000-year-old ancient practice, courtesy of some pretty modern technology. Wonderful blend. Anyway, thank you all for coming. Namaste.